Hello and welcome to season 4 of Own Your Divine Light show. This show is Accelerate Ascension during times of chaos and pandemic. And I am Isla Serona Miller, which is my magical name of Janet. And this is a name I was given by Spirit that I'm stepping into. And so I'm bringing it out in this show. And we have all been going through so much, and it's feeling like there are so many things that are lifting, yet the horizon is still unknown. And we are meant to create a new way of being. And today's guest has overcome so much to create a life that is abundant and rich with new knowledge and continuous discoveries that support people in so many amazing ways. David, welcome, David Rippy. And say hello, David.
Hey, thanks, Janet. That was very nice.
Well, I have a lot more to say about you, so I'm going to just continue a little more. So if you don't know David, you are in for an inspirational way of being that is going to bring you some incredible understandings and new knowledge and discovery that you're meant to know today because you're here. So David is an inspirational speaker who seeks to help people live their best lives. And at age 25, in the midst of beginning a career at a Fortune 50 company, David's life changed dramatically when a car accident left him paralyzed from the shoulders down. Despite this life-altering injury, he formulated a vision for his life. He became determined to fulfill his ambition to become a money manager, and he did. And David went on to have a long and successful career working at both Merrill Lynch and in Vanguard. And I think you still do, don't you?
We do stuff on the side. We're not as active on the money management side at this point.
Okay. Well, and after achieving your own dreams, David wanted to help others to reach their goals and help them live their best lives and face the greatest hardships that they're facing. And he has written 3 books, and each of them have addressed a different aspect of existence, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and he introduces his reader to his first book, which talks about his devastating spinal cord injury and the road to becoming successful and to become the captain of his soul and mastering a destiny altered. That was the name of his book, which is a powerful name. And there's so much inspiration from that. And David's second book, Powering Through Paralysis, How to Survive and Thrive with Disability and Disease, is geared towards the disabled, providing pearls of wisdom. And Dave's spiritual odyssey of his own explorations of the afterlife through his personal hypnotic sessions and his clients from his hypnotism practice are featured in his next book coming out, Immortal Soul, and the journey to enlightenment. And also he wrote a book about Jesus. I can't believe the things you've done. And he's hypnotically regressed clients, exploring their past life and encounters with archangels and ascended masters through this book. You also wrote Texas Blue Moon, a novel, his first, and he's currently—
A romance.
Was it a romance?
It's like a romance. What I did was I'd written a lot of songs and poems through the years, and I thought nobody's going to have much interest in that. So I decided to write a book about a fictitious musician on the road. It's actually, a lot of people like it. I mean, it talks about the guy that everybody would like, every girl would like.
Wow.
A wonderful woman that has to be caught in an abusive relationship and how they survive, beating out the FBI and the drug cartels and getting away to, have him go on to stardom with records and albums and things like that, and her getting out of her tough situation. Pretty riveting book.
Sounds great. It sounds great. I'm going to have to pick that one up now. There's a lot of things you do, David, and he is currently completing his Healing Today's Pain, which will be out in July. So welcome, David. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
And you're so prolific and inspirational as a writer as well. I mean, what the gifts you have developed are incredible. I mean, it's just wonderful to hear. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, yeah, we never thought we'd be into get into writing and things like that, and we discovered some past lives. And I enjoyed being creative when I was younger. Like I said, I would write poems, song lyrics, thinking that was maybe what I enjoyed doing. And a book just seems such a large and lengthy goal to even try to attempt one. But it's funny. I had reached out, after I'd done some past life regressions, and I wanted to reach out to some of the world's top psychics. to kind of get a feel while they tap into like my Akasha records, my record of past lives.
Hmm.
And they all said the same thing. And around, they said I would leave my position and I would start writing books. And it was important that I talk to people and things like that. So, after about the fourth, I'd say top 10 psychic said this, we thought there must be something to that. And they all said it's part of the purpose. And then, my previous career, I was getting a little bored with it, to be honest. It was not something I found as stimulating as,
Hmm. Hmm.
learning what's behind the veil. I
Oh,
found it,
absolutely. Wow, that's so exciting. So you really had some ideas and you just followed it. You went with the flow of what you were told, which is so great.
yeah.
It seems effortless for you.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm pretty lucky.
Well, nothing's really effortless in writing, but
It's not quite effortless, but we
right, right.
over the years we managed to hire good assistants, which it's funny. It's not just what I've done as far as reaching out through ads and things like that, but it's more or less people that are guided your direction, and I don't doubt that at all. I mean, I've had a lot of people come into my life. Some obviously like parents and family, and that are here for many, many years, and others that might be here for 10 years, 2 years, 5 years, and I've been fortunate enough to hire a lot of assistants. They enjoy helping with the books. I have them transcribe the recordings. So they all get to play a part in that process of getting these out there. And it's a neat thing to do. It's better than, maybe your typical assistant caregiver job where you might be just, watching Jeopardy all after you eat a sandwich. So this kind of gives them a little bit more,
Oh,
ability to
yeah,
use their own gifts to help control.
absolutely. Yeah, you're creating a community also for yourself, which is so beautiful. And they're part of your community and they love that. I can see that because you're glowing. You have this amazing aura about you. So, what I'm really excited about is hear about your past life readings and a little bit of your story of how you got into the hypnotherapy and why. And so I'd love to hear some of that before we get into the other past lives of your clients.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. What happened was, I was in a car accident at age 25, and I always thought, why me? I was athletic, I was
Mhm.
strong, I had just started a job with a top 50 company. Pretty much just had a pretty easy coast through life with sports and things like that. Um, and all of a sudden, in a car accident, sitting in the woods, I can't move. I'm slumped down in the car,
Mm.
roots caved in around me, and I can't move a muscle, including arms and legs. And it's very unnerving at that age. I mean, it's almost like surreal in the sense that you feel it's like a bad dream or something. So
Hmm.
anyway, we went through the rehab process 6 months, and I came out and I said, I was a competitive person physically. So now, since I couldn't compete physically, I thought, okay, well, we're gonna have to compete another way, and I guess that would have to be, mentally, try harder than I did in college. I made it through and did, well enough, but never really went for like the highest grade in the class. So I decided that was gonna have to be some way I could be competitive. So we started taking night classes and working toward a certified financial planning license, a Series 7 to trade stocks. And I thought the market would keep me interested, keep me focused on global events and what's going
Hmm.
on, politically, economically, socially, all that stuff. And it did for a while. But it, kind of filled that gap a little bit of needing knowledge and such. But then again, on the other hand, at that same age, I was also reading Edgar Casey. I was really getting into a lot of his work. I've done 3 past life regressions myself. I saw a lady on TV hypnotize 3 people who had different, markedly different lives than they led normally in this life. And I thought that was fascinating. I always thought, well, maybe I was a gunslinger. I always liked, I had fast reflexes and stuff. And it was interesting because I went and had the past life, and I wasn't a gunslinger per se, but I had won shooting a turkey with a long rifle. So I'd won a contest doing that. And I saw myself with a beard and a hat, and, sitting outside of a wagon, drinking like homemade some type of beer out of a back of a, with the wagon with 10 other guys all dressed in long coats, kind of like what Lincoln era would wear. It's around 1860, it was the same time period.
Hmm.
And, I went to California to look for gold, and,
Wow.
didn't find it, but the therapist said, if you could change one thing, and this back when I was 25, when I did was 26. She goes, if you could change one thing in that life, what would it be? And it wasn't to be like, well, maybe a nicer person or maybe have more patience. I said, to find the gold. So anyway, I saw myself sort of in that kind of mind frame, kind of went forward and
Mhm.
went forward to practice, a broker's business, Merrill Lynch. You're gonna have a better shot at maybe making it than out digging with a shovel looking for gold in some creek somewhere. So, that was that focus there. I really, it was kind of that same type mentality coming forward. I wanted a quick strike, maybe not have to work forever and something like that. So it worked out, some trades go up, some trades go down. Overall, we did we did well enough that we were able to leave work early and start writing books and such. But, it was more of savings. It was just, constant savings. And like I said, I was starting to get bored with money management. So I thought about something that kind of naturally occurred. I didn't go out of my way and say, hey, I want to be a hypnotist because it looks pretty neat. It started
Mhm.
out actually to where a girl came over to work one night. It was about 10 years ago, I'd say 12 years ago. And her neck was sprained and she had a frozen neck. She couldn't bend. And at the time, I didn't have what's known as a Hoyer lift, which helps get you out of the
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah.
So what they were doing was doing a bear hug transfers. So she couldn't even bend her head down and grab me around the waist. I mean, she had tears in her eyes. So I thought to myself, let's try something. And like I said, I had been hypnotized myself probably, 5 years earlier, whatever, 8 years earlier. So I said, lay down and, I had her put an amethyst crystal in her hand. I was already collecting crystals and stuff, and had her put that in her hand. And I'd already read some books, about different techniques, and hypnotized her. And for about 45 minutes, and across her back and her neck, and I kind of it was from sleeping wrong and stress and everything else. So. What was interesting was that she sat up and she's feeling the back, looking at me kind of shocked because she really couldn't move. She wouldn't have done anything. um, and said, well, it's all gone here, but I still feel a little bit on my right shoulder. So I said, all right, lay back down. So 20 minutes later, got up and lifted me like I was a feather, stuck her head under my arm, and
Wow.
just zoomed me up in the air and put me right on bed. And she goes, my left leg doesn't hurt anymore. Did you do anything there? And what it was, she had an ACL tear from soccer in high school. And, we'd worked on that. So her knee had always constantly bothered her. And she was the one that, she's not taking painkillers or anything like that, but just that constant irritating ache. And she lost that also that night. And
Wow.
that's how we started doing it. And then we just thought, then we did it for a long time. We did it for about 5 more years. And probably about several years ago, I said, you know what? It's not required in Pennsylvania. You need one in California and Texas, and like Florida maybe now. But I thought, just to legitimize it a little more, because most of the hypnotherapists that are getting, or they're not even hypnotherapists really, this is part of their practice, but they're usually doctors. So people will read that. So I thought, if we at least legitimize it with a certified hypnotherapist license from, the top accredited program in the country, then, people will be more prone to want to take the information seriously.
Wow. So that was all natural. That's incredible.
Yeah, we did a lot of that all for a long time, and I still wouldn't even have a hypnotherapy license now unless But I did learn some things. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to have. I mean, it really is, because we did learn a lot that we didn't know because we were doing it naturally from reading Newton's books after a while, from reading Casey, just reading Dolores Cannon, reading other
Yeah,
people.
Dolores Cannon. That's what I was thinking of. You kind of remind me of her because you're like the male version because she did all hers through just natural. I mean, right?
I think so. I don't know her whole background as
Yeah, I
far as
don't know all of it, but
a
what I
doctor. Yeah,
understand,
she's not
yeah.
like a doctor or psychologist. I'm sure. I don't know if she had a course or not, but I think once people get into my books and kind of follow what we do, kind of look around and see, what, I can maybe do that. And in my immortal soul, just to give people an idea, like I'm not the only guy out there doing this. It'd be nice if other people could learn how to do it in a very safe way and hypnotize your friends. Try to do it. Try to practice this stuff. It's not that hard. And I think it'd really be interesting if a lot of people were able to take that step. Get beyond their daily activities. Look for something a little larger. Than worrying about what we're going to watch on Netflix at night. So I think there's a lot of things to think about.
Well, sure. This is what's going on in our life right now, isn't it? With all this chaos, it's telling us that there's more to life than what we've seen and what we've been experiencing. it's given us this time right now to see that, isn't it? I think that's
I
what.
agree. I agree. The more you think about it, because a lot of, for instance, nieces and nephews or children have been around the folks more than they normally would. So there's more of a family
Mhm,
unit because you
mhm.
kind of force into that in a sense. It's taken away a lot of the malls, the movie theaters were closed, the cruise ships, the plane travel, the vacations, the times that we really want to get lost and distracted. So it's kind of brought us all back to say, you know what? I can walk through the woods, it's COVID free, we got a distance. So I think a lot of people are really, and they've gone online looking for, maybe something to relax them, maybe a meditation
Mhm,
type
mhm.
stress, anxiety relief tape or some sort of recording. And that's another thing I might as well mention while we're here. We have about probably 18 or 20 recordings on my website, which are hypnotic meditation tapes, which they work well with insomnia. They work well with migraines, chronic pain for men, for women. So we put about 18 of those on there for free that you can just try out.
Yeah, I saw that. They were amazing. I mean, they were long, like about an hour. Because I was going to try one. I'm like, well, this is an hour. I can't do that today. But I was like, okay, this is interesting because you've just got to set aside a time to just give it the full attention. And this is the beauty of what we're happening to us right now. I think people are getting closer to their families. They're getting closer in their whole relationship, that even with them, with the family and with themselves. And the work you're doing also is leading people to go in and to know more about themselves. And that's why this past lives is so exciting and important. And I've heard about him in the past 20 years, but now it seems to be really up to the forefront. I keep hearing more and more about past life regression, and especially the hypnosis version, which is a deeper way of going. And people are bringing up things that they would never have imagined. So what are some of the past life sessions you've had with your clients that you feel has changed their life, or that stands out in some particular way?
Yeah, I found most of the people that have, or clients that have done past lives, at the end of their session, they usually come away with just a sense of calm. They feel a sense of
Mm,
peace. And we also work toward that. We, eliminate the stress, anxiety, depression, all those things. And then we kind of slide into the past life. And then, what they recall is things, and a lot of times we'll go forward and we'll say, let's bring in lives that are pertinent to your life now. What gifts did you bring down that you might want to be more aware of that you're not taking advantage of, for example? In other words, they haven't taken that step. There could be some fear factors involved. I'm not going to switch jobs. I'm not going to try this. So there's a lot of reasons. But in a deep, deep hypnotic state, when you can get so far deep into the super conscious, literally their divine selves coming forward at that point. And
mm,
that's the point that you'll see we can bring angels in and ascended masters, things like that. And they'll come in and I'll say, and then what's interesting in the book, Meeting Jesus, right after Mortal Soul, there's some of it in Mortal Soul too. I'd say, what does Jesus have to say? Does he have any words for you? And they're saying, well, he said to, and he would say something very profound that, just came out of their head, about how they should improve that particular part of their life. And it was just said in a way that sounds, like he's off Mount Olympus or something. And then we
wow.
say, okay, what about Buddha? What does he have? And he would say something else. What about Confucius? And of course, Confucius, she said to stick to my studies and try harder. So as Confucius was more of the cerebral, I mean, they're all cerebral,
Mm,
but out of all of them, he was probably, one of the most cerebral, to tell you the truth. When you kind of look at all the work what he accomplished and stuff, it was like a whole level. But obviously, Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, even Mohammed, Rama, they all had a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom, and laid that out it's been around for years. A lot of clients that came to me were a lot very spiritual. Not a lot of them had a very deep rooted faith. Some of them did. There was some that come, more Christian, not a couple of Buddhists, and really enjoyed learning about lives which are totally disconnected from this life. In other words, we had a girl that into Reiki and things like that, and one of her past lives we went back to. And she came to me just not to segue too much of it, talk about why she came. She came with stress. She came with fibromyalgia, or how you say it, lupus,
Mm.
and ache from her head all the way to her feet. She had
Wow.
already had multiple migraines over the last year, and she had had 3 concussions in 1 year. So she said she ached from her hair roots all the way down to her feet.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, let's see. Well, it was an interesting thing to do. So we did, hypnotize her and brought her down into a deep state. And then she begins recounting a life as a male in Guatemala, years old. Her parents were deported. It was a male. His parents were deported to Guatemala. This is back in the mid 50s. And a guy was abandoned here, 20-year-old kid in like
Oh, wow.
Baltimore, Washington area. And went through the 60s. And then when he got older, about 18, 20, 25, he was enraged. His parents were gone. He was by himself.
Mm.
He was mad at the government. So what he ended up doing was he started getting in bar fights a lot. He said he was doing pills. And here she is confessing all this, going, yeah, I did pills. I shouldn't have done those. They were bad for me. I drank a lot. I became enraged and I get in fights. And people, after a while, realized I was a pretty darn good fighter. So he would just not want to mess with me. I had a reputation all around Baltimore and Washington. And he said this African-American man who was a former semi-pro boxer took him in and taught him how to fight even better than what he already did, his own natural abilities. And next thing you know, he talked about about an underground fighter fighting between Baltimore, Washington, not getting as far as Philadelphia, because I did ask that, and how that they died in like 1967, had the exact date, the exact place where they lived. They became homeless. And when he was 20 years old, he worked as a bus boy at one of these local restaurants down in Baltimore. Exact street address, and
Wow.
he ended up living behind a dumpster outside of the restaurant down the street. And he'd go to the restaurant, get food, go back behind the dumpster. That was his life, basically, going up and down that alley.
Oh,
And, and then that life had suffered massive damage cognitively because, all the blows to his head, his body was broken up. So he ached repeatedly. And, then we get to the end of the life, and they froze to death behind the dumpster, saw themselves come out of their body. Michael showed up, Archangel Michael, walked her up these steps, like these steps. I said, how many steps are there? And she knew the exact number. I think it was like 128 or something. And I go, there's a banister. She's describing everything. She goes, okay, what's the banister feels like? Feels like smooth wood as I'm going up higher and higher. And now we're at the top, and he's pointing to a bridge. He wants me to go over by myself. So went across the next thing, in front of her council, and learned that a lot of that pain carried into this life was a result of dying in her last life. Knew exactly. She died in 76. She was reborn again in 93 in this life. So there was a gap of 17 years that she stayed on the other side, give or take.
that's really fast. I wouldn't have thought that people come back that fast, but I guess they do, huh?
Well, yeah, what I've learned is if you go back, let's say you go back 10 or 20,000 years ago on this planet, say you're, one of the early, Native Americans, you're hunting saber-toothed tigers in Macedon, you're one of the first 10,000 years.
Wow.
And then what they said, a lot of times you will wait for about 300 or 400 years and you might come back again, you'll do it again. What I've learned though, and what I've seen with questions is that, and I think Newton said the same thing, is that you're seeing a progression of this time speeding up to come back. They don't let you sit up there and play for too long a period anymore. Normally it's like, and you want to accelerate it because this is a chance on Earth now, to gain a lot of soul growth if you take advantage of it. So what you'll find of it, and this version was a blue soul. So kind of green, more like a dark green, some blue. So what I find is that the more advanced souls want to come back right away, and they go zipping right out, find out what they did wrong, what they passed, and they come right back down pretty darn quick. They'll spend that 17 years that she did, learning some lessons and learning things, all of a sudden hopping in that space, that new biosuit and ripping down here. And that's what I've seen. I've seen most of them you go back 5,000 years, then you might wait to, from 5,000 BC, you might come back 4,500 BC or something. Then
Okay.
you'll come back in 3000 BC. But now, no, it's more like this started all back, and you go back to like 1400s, 1500s. You're
Mhm.
seeing people coming back within 50 years, 80, no more than 80 years. And then all of a sudden you get to the 1700s and 1800s, then it's like the gap's getting down to 30 years, 20 years.
Wow.
And you got up to this century right now, I'd say the gap, most of them are between 9 and like 25 years tops.
That's so interesting. I had
Yeah.
no idea. And we were talking before we started about reincarnation. And that to me is such a powerful topic because, you were even saying how many people are not aware. I know that many people are not aware, even being Christian, of the fact about reincarnation. And you've written about it in your book. So tell us about it. Tell us what you know and what you found out about reincarnation.
Well, what I found in studies and reading as such is that reincarnation was taken out of the Bible as a book or a chapter back in 553 AD by Emperor Justinian.
Mhm.
Okay, now he leaned on 165 church elders and basically said, "Hey, we're going to take this out." There's a lot of reasons behind this. Back in that day in 553 AD, it was kind of it was politically motivated. That's
Mhm.
why they leaned on it. Because if you thought you had more than one life and did do well in that life or do as what the emperor's telling you to do, you'll come back again anyway. Maybe you'll be the emperor next time. So what they found is that, for control, it's better to say, hey, you're going to go to hell if you're not good. You don't give a certain amount of money. If you don't do this,
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
that's how it works. So they took it out of the Bible. Okay. And it was more or less a control thing more than anything. Even at what they call the Council of Chalcedon, I believe, back in like
Mhm.
451 AD, all the early church fathers talked about reincarnation, from Origen to Basilides to St. Gregory. And a lot of it came from Plato back in 400 BC. What do you find? If you go all the way back, as Plato influenced most of the early church fathers. And Jesus talked about it in the Bible. I mean, there was quotes from Matthew, there's quotes in the book of Thomas they took out of the Bible, talked specifically about the Gnostics, I think, and things like this. So what happened was, as a result of taking that out of the Bible back then, it changed the course of Christian theology to where nobody I've met really understands, unless I'd say a lot of church scholars might know this, but they don't get too caught up in the past life thing probably. They're looking at it from more of an academic standpoint. They'll say, oh, okay, they took that out. But I also understood they took out 46 other books also. The book of Mary
Wow.
Magdalene, the book of Thomas. Took out a bunch. Well, they took it out. You got to think about this before the Gutenberg press. So, to carry around a book 3 feet tall and have to handwrite everything. So, they kind of gave us the Cliff Note version or what real originally was there back in, say 200 BC, or no, 200 AD, excuse me. So back in 200 AD is when, a lot of these stories, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 150, that was like passed down. And they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, which obviously had a big impact too, and, kind of opened up a lot of this Gnostic early thought. And, that's been sort of that's opened up that whole interest, like what else is missing?
Mhm.
And, I think today, if we look at the world, we 51% believe in reincarnation, 51% believe in God as well. So they're kind of equal there. About 26, 7% don't, and 25, 23 some odd percent think we cease existent death. Newton was a man kind of followed Dr. Newton as far as, the work he did. He kind of pioneered that whole thing about soul
Yeah.
having
Oh, yeah.
all sorts of neat stuff. And a lot of my work has been based on sort of what he did, and
Hmm.
taking it a little farther than that, in the sense that, we'll actually, not only go to the council meetings where they're telling them what they did right or wrong, but we'll also have, have the archangels, the ascended masters also contribute information. And I don't think Newton was it. I don't know if he thought about bringing them in or not, but I'm sure they would have come in if he maybe would have asked.
Yeah, you were saying he was an agnostic, which I didn't know that. I read his books, but I don't remember that part. But it was fascinating because it opened the doors to so many understandings. And now you've taken them even further, like you've made them even more current because of the people you're working with.
Yeah, I think what I found, and here's what's interesting: the immortal soul was, a lot of people. I found most of them were kind of that green level soul. They're kind of in the helping people, animals, they like nature. Little drama going on, there's some drama they're trying to get over, maybe some traumatic incidents in this life. Is what I found, like a lot of the green soul levels. Now the blues, I've met some of them, and some of them just seem to coast through life. They're very personable, very compassionate. They get along with everyone. I mean, there's nobody that says a bad word about them. And they know things, they just, maybe they have some psychic abilities or in the Reiki shamanism. They're the first one to run to the hospital when somebody has an issue, if they need someone. So that's kind of the bluish level. And that's about as far as it goes. You got some purples here today, but not a lot.
So how did you find out about these colors? Because this is new to me. I've never heard of the color of souls.
Basically what it does, when you're on the other side, and I've seen a lot of clients under deep regression goes, one example would be a woman I hypnotized, had migraines and stress and anxiety and a bad marriage and got broken up and didn't know why, then found out her husband in the earlier life had actually murdered her. And she got married to the same guy. So now they're separate. She broke that chain, that cycle at least. Taking her life in another life, which is kind of like, wow. And he was kind of a little different in this life, I'd say too. But anyway, toward the end of that, and she passed away, and her ex-husband, her husband, if somebody came for her grandma or whatever. But anyway, they kind of walked off, and next I go, where are you at? And she goes, well, we're on the other side. And I said, okay, what do you see? She goes, all I see is colors, different lights, different souls. And that kind of started that. And Newton came across the same thing. And what he found was that a soul's evolution can be determined by the color that they radiate, their primary color. And then they're going to give off some secondary colors. Okay. But a lot of them I've seen it works. And I'll say with under deep and not regression, I'll say, what color are you radiating? And most, there's greens, there's some green with some blue, there's some yellow with some green, orange, it just depends. And it really is pretty much almost like the colors you would see in a prism or a spectrum or a chakra.
I was going to say chakra.
That a red, it goes in the, goes in the orange and yellow, then green and then blue, and then up into indigo, then deep purple and stuff. And that's kind of how it is. That's pretty accurate. And you see where they land, based on the soul color. If they want to go from, and I had a client come right out and tell me and said, they said they wanted me to do some more leadership type roles. She goes, I passed my lessons, but they said that was too easy of a life. And they would like to, they said, and I said, too easy of a life. I mean, you had 7 children, 3 of them died in childbirth.
Wow.
You're on a farm in the 1860s. That does not sound too easy with a bunch of kids. So we went in front of a council, and the council said, you had we saw what you did, but we think you have more ability. You can take a harder role, and we'd like to see that because we have faith in you. We see leadership qualities. And I go, well, and what do you think of that? Because she's listening to her counsel, tell her, she's reciting it back to me. She goes, I'm not thinking too much, but that sounds very, something that sounds hard or something or other. And you find that it works both ways. Here's the thing, you find some souls take harder lives than they're handling down here on, okay, and they might fall short. They might get depressed. They might end up on a handful of pills some doctor told them they need for anxiety or stress. And it shuts them down. So they're not accomplishing like what they came down here to do. In her case, she realized that, it was a hard life, but, it's all relative. I mean, what's harder, having a life in Nigeria, looking for, money to eat something, or living in America? And there's different lives out there, obviously. Lives, easy lives and kind of average lives. So that's what they want to do. They said, we'd like you to take some more hard lessons for soul growth. And I think that's what you're seeing today. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing more of an acceleration of souls.
Oh, yeah.
I think from what I've understood is they feel, what I've learned from the other side is they feel the collective consciousness is behind maybe where they should be now. Is there reasons for that? Sure there is. I mean, life's hard, Well, life's hard enough. You toss in COVID and you toss in distractions of Netflix and Prime Video and cell phones, text messages.
Well, what about control factors of these, these elites that are trying to control us? The dark forces, if you want to go that way.
Well, there's a strong battle. It makes it harder and harder to just kind of meander your way through life, let alone figure out who you were in a past life. But I mean, there's all sorts of things going on, on this
This
planet,
is not an easy life. I know that one. I know that for sure.
and that's why they come down. They said,
Yes. Yeah.
it's like a privilege. So anybody that's come down, my understanding is, pay yourself on the back. I mean, you've come to a world that is unlike many of the other learning schools out there. And this is a world that, has the most diversity. It has the most emotions. It has the most possibilities that you can take. We can fly around the world now. You see a lot of the different locations beyond, what you're living in. You see the world's most opulence, the world's most despair. I mean, we have all these possibilities. And how do we want to contribute to that? Do we want, are we going to be able to afford to, take the time? Are we going to take the time, to maybe to reach out, try to help others that might not be as fortunate as we are? So, I think with the distraction today between the cell phones, the text messaging, the constant reminders and alarms people have going off on their phones all day long, it's really kind of led away from realizing there's even more than just, the world, the illusion you're sort of in right now. There's a lot of realize that, things extend way beyond this one life you're in now. And if you can find that out, like Buddha said, the key to life is waking up in the life you're in. That's the key to life. And once you wake up and discover that immortal side to yourself, and the fact you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives, kind of makes this one, a life that you say, hey, I'm in a lucid dream. Let me try to work my way through this. I'll use the law of attraction to be nice and like I should be and things like that, and have things work toward your benefit, and it'll work, by helping others, you'll find out will occur. And I always thought the law of attraction, is that really real? Can I reach out to 10 people and I'll give them $10? Next time I have 1,000 back, how does that work? But no, the reality is, the energy you're putting out there is going to attract some more energy. And if you, have enough of a field around you of positivity, you're going to thwart off a lot of the negativity coming your direction. So I think a lot of people just don't realize how to protect themselves from negative energy vampires, constant media grab for your attention, whatever free time you might have. How's it being used? Are we watching Netflix every night?
Well, I think, don't you think a lot of those are distractions purposely made?
They are. Yeah, because that's been kind of the option we've had with COVID. You're not traveling to an island for 7 days and enjoying yourself, or going to Disney World. You're stuck with Netflix, and you kind of do these
or not, or you can sit in your backyard.
Yeah,
and look at the birds.
That is, some people have a little Zen garden, but most don't, I don't think. And a lot of people are just trying to survive. A lot of layoffs and everything else, and I think if we take that time to quiet our minds, just to find that space, we can, take a lot of the stress and anxiety out of our worlds. And, even Buddha said, somebody asked him, this, I'm sure it's followed down through the line, but, what do you gain from meditation? You sit out there, you're under that tree. What do you gain from this? He goes, not what I've gained, it's what I've lost. And I've lost stress. I've lost fear. I've lost anxiety. I've lost depression. And imagine what most people's lives would be if we just took those items away. Just took away the negative. And what does that leave us? Well, it leaves us, in a more positive or inspired mindset, maybe a focus that's not geared toward depression, and a focus that might be geared toward, let's accomplish the goal today. Let's try do something new.
Yeah, well, your meditations are really beautiful to guide people towards that. I saw that on your website. That's exactly what you do. And meditation is something that a lot of people look at and think, well, it's like reincarnation. Well, it's an old ancient art. What, like you're saying, what would it do for me? But look at what you're saying. Look at what we're losing. We're losing all this stress. I know when I meditate, it's just the most wonderful space I create. And when I don't, I'm like, why aren't I doing that? So, you have to get yourself into practice, which it doesn't always happen easy because we are in a survival mode here, or we're being put in that mindset of survival so that we don't take the time to meditate, to move into that beautiful space. And so the past lives that you do too, that seems to help people as well, doesn't it? It helps them, come to understand who they are in this life, as you say, and it also helps them to know what they really want in their lives. I mean, does it help them answer questions? It seems like it does.
Well, yeah, not only has it taken away pain from either this life or previous lives, their focus is heightened toward what goals or what aspirations that maybe their counsels tell them when they're deep in that state at the very end of that life. What we do is, how well did you do that life? Well, this is a past life. How well do we do? That's all old history. But I also ask, how are you doing? And how are the ascended masters saying you're doing in this life? How does Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gabriel, how they say you're doing? And they'll sit there and go, well, I need to meditate more. I need to have more patience. I need to follow my dreams with Reiki more. I need to, continue my practice. I'm on the right path, they're telling me. And that's what they'll learn. They'll even learn not only how they did in the past life, but how well they're doing in this life. And I think that kind of knowledge can really, they get inspired by it. They'll sit there go, well, they want me to continue. They think what I'm doing with Reiki is good. They'd like to see me expand more into, doing more energy healing. I have other abilities besides Reiki that they want me to try to discover, on my own through my readings. And, a lot of are guided. I mean, it's interesting. The mouse today is kind of like what the Ouija board was of 150 years ago or whatever. And I found this true personally. I mean, I could be online reading an article. Maybe I want to go to, for example, waking.com, which has some pretty good stuff on, the environment and what's going on and wisdom and, meditation and all that. And then I'll read one article, then over on the right, I'll say, wow, that kind of is interesting. And I'll go to that article, read that. Next thing I've gone through about 5 or 6 different locations and then discovered something really amazing, like digging for that final gem of knowledge. And, we're guided, we a lot of times we just think that we're mind and everything that comes to us is through our mind and it's our own little decision we're making, but that's not right. A lot of times we'll have spirit guides, we'll have guardian angels, we'll have those telling us. It's like a little signal that comes in and says, let me go to that website. Let me check out that article. That will help me. And they'll do that. And I've noticed that's what the mouse is like. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a Ouija board or a crystal where you're doing, or divine, using one of those rods, witching rods. I mean, it's just kind of moving in that kind of direction. But no, I agreed. I think that is definitely the case. And I think if people become open-minded to that possibility and just try a regression, just try one, just see what that gives you. And, or go online and, read about, read one of my books, read Newton's books, and what I did was I took the immortal soul, because some people don't have time to read. A lot of people don't have time just to sit down and devote some hours to read. It's like a luxury today.
Yes.
So what they can do when they're in a car, they can listen to one of the chapters on Audible. They're all on my website.
That's great.
I broke down every chapter in Immortal Soul and Meeting Jesus book, individual chapters. So it'll be like 30 minutes here, 40 minutes here. And I'll play the whole chapter like they do on Audible or Alexa, Kindle.
Yeah, I find that myself. You can do 2 things at once. Like I could be cleaning dishes or cleaning up my house and listening to like something that I really want to listen to. I don't have to, and I don't always, and I have so many books, but I don't always have the time to sit there and read them like I used to. It's like, wow, how did that happen? Because I used to be able to read all the time, and now it's like, where did it go? Where did that time go? So, well, because we're doing this kind of work is where it's going, because we're meant to, because we're brought, as you say, we've come in to do new work to accelerate our soul growth. And that's the whole premise of this life, isn't it? Is to accelerate our soul growth.
That's right. And Earth, from my understanding, is one of those. And what I've learned is I've had clients I've hypnotized that have told me about, aquatic bled, from being a dolphin. We've had some,
Mhm.
uh, this humanoid looking creature, not creatures, but humanoid type species
Oh, are
on
you kidding?
other
Yeah.
rocks and
Oh,
things like,
yeah.
which were similar. It's almost like Avatar. I had one to describe themselves. It was almost like watching James Cameron's movie Avatar, where they have the tail, they're long and skinny, and they're jumping through the trees and have crazy telepathic abilities. And just pretty wild stuff out there. But, you got to realize that, this planet's about 4.5 billion years old. Our galaxy is about 17 billion, give or take. We'll call it 16, 17. But the overall universes that are out there is very, very old. This is a very, very young universe compared to,
Yes.
we're literally down to the bottom 5% or 1%. If you go to what the Hindus talk about with Brahma, the age of Brahma was about 315 to 330 trillion years old.
Wow.
So that's what we know as God. So you can imagine think about how much we've learned since we've grown up from the age of 1 till our current age today, how much we know. Now take that over 320 to 330 trillion years. You can see how that consciousness, that super collective consciousness, has grown. And one of the things I talk about in the Mortal Soul is the universal laws, and how it doesn't matter whether you're Christian or Buddhist or
Mhm. Mhm.
Muslim. All our lives are ruled by these 7 main universal laws. There's other ones, but these are the 7 main ones. And I think if somebody really looks at that, you can change your life dramatically. And I haven't done a show on that yet, but what we found is 3 of them you're not going to ever change. That they're mutable, you cannot bend them. But the other 4 you can manipulate, and see how to make your patterns more positive in your life. So I think if you're going to enjoy the past life chapters in Immortal Soul, memorize the universal laws and see how that plays in your life and how you can change 4 of those laws to where you can pretty much accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I always think of one of the universal laws is treat others like you treat yourself. I mean, that's like the golden rule and the
Yeah.
golden mean, right?
Yeah.
But then that's the only one I can think of right off the top of my head. But I don't know if I know them all, but I'm going to have to check it out, like what you've brought together, because you've learned this through all the people bringing it through.
That night, it's written in the ancient temples of Delphi, and they say, know these 7
Ah,
laws, then you will understand the gods and the universes. And, the law of mentalism is the first one. We can't change the law of mentalism. That's where consciousness is in every dimension, from the highest, the 13th, all the way down to the lowest, the second. Here we're on the third. This is the third dimension here. So you can just imagine the other 8, 9 dimensions of, that's kind of where you're striving to get back toward. And a lot of them will fall in the 4th and 5th dimension. That's sort of what I see on average. But other ones are higher. Like there's the higher realms, the astral realms, which is 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And
mhm. But aren't
you know,
we aiming? Don't you see that we're aiming to go into the 5th dimension? Like we're in the. They say we're in
well,
the
I talk
4th.
about that, yeah. And I've read a lot about that, about how we're going to the 3rd dimension, kind of going into the 5th, and with or without us, and whether you're on board or not. I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff to that effect. And a lot of it just gets down to kind of what we're doing today on this podcast. Maybe take an hour, listen to one of the guided meditations, read some chapters on some of these people in today's world living here, your neighbors, your friends, people you might have known that will share markedly different lives and what they're doing today and how they're doing in this life. And I think if we just kind of go with that, you can change your life, especially if you have pain today. This book I'm coming out with in July called Healing Today's Pain, talks about that underground fighter girl, 28-year-old female in this life who was a male that got beaten up a lot in a previous life, and how you're able to erase that pain. Another guy, he's a West Coast guy. He's a pretty neat guy. He's done a lot of executive produced a lot of shows out there that we've all heard of, like Third Rock from the Sun and the Goonies and
Mhm.
the gym and and all this. Had an intense phobia, fear of violence, and he couldn't even watch a movie without getting nauseous and stuff.
Hmm.
Never had an incident in this life that would kind of contribute to that sense of fear all the time.
Mhm.
So we did a regression with him on, on Zoom. And next thing you know, he's recounting his life right before this one, to where he was born in New York City. He's his parents were Italian immigrants. He's like 1920s, 30s. And he's growing up. And next thing you know, he recounts the life. I go, do you see yourself at 20? He goes, yes. I'm involved in nightclubs. And I go, really? That's kind of interesting. Do you own them or do you work at them? He goes, no, I just hang out at them with my friends and party. So it's kind of funny. But what was interesting about that was I go, do you see yourself at 30? He got really silent. He goes, no. He goes, I think I was murdered. So then he went and described the murder at age 23, where he was shot in New York City right before this life. And, we were able to uncover that. What I tell him, I say, go back, listen to the recording 4 or 5, 7, 8, 10 times. It's like seeing that one bad movie, that Nightmare on Elm Street, where, we see Freddy Krueger dragging somebody down the hall and you're just like, oh my God, that's horrible. If you relive that 10 times, the impact is going to get less and less, almost like,
Mhm.
almost like a lot of us are dead to violence now anyway, because all the news and the media and everything else. But you're going to see in your own world that real true story you experienced. And if you can go back and relive that and just, can we get it back? It's almost like, okay, that's one past life. That was kind of ugly. Obviously I got shot, but I'm in this life now, so I can move forward and not be scared of violence anymore. So that's what we try to do, is try to bring together that pain from a past life forward and inject it in this life. And that's
Mhm.
what that book's all about. There's a woman, girl came, about 29 years old, tense fear, could not ride as a passenger in a car, didn't know why. Just got in and just got anxiety levels just rose through the roof. So we hypnotized her, brought her back, and then she recounts a life right before this one. School teacher going down the road and was hit by a drunk driver, flipped her car like 3 times into a ravine. And then she recounts a life. She saw her body come out. They didn't find her for 2 weeks. She tried to get back in her body and couldn't do it, and just kind of waited around. She was down in the woods. It was back in the 50s, 60s. Just lost in the woods. Finally, somebody, kids hiking through the woods, where find her car, and there she was sitting in the driver's seat still. But link then, you go, of course, to make sure, and you say, well, do you feel that pain you're carrying forward now, that phobia of being a passenger in a car, is that from that life where you died from a drunk driver incident?
Mhm.
And they go, yes. And you go back and get that out. You can take away these phobias and fears that people carry forward. And pain, not only mental pain, but physical pain, like the boxer that was beaten up, or the underground fighter, you
Sure.
know, and you see this pain dissipate because the mind is powerful enough under hypnosis and even under deep state, if you can get to training, that you can eliminate most body aches, things like that. Me with a broken tooth in her mouth. There's actually a girl I was dating, exposed nerve, no dental plan in between his jobs, could not get out of bed, just like grinding, hurt,
Wow.
painful, broken, exposed molar.
Wow.
45 minutes later, set up, hadn't had a tooth fixed in 2 years, and could eat normal food all the time without any pain from that tooth anymore. The pain from hypnosis just killed the pain. And it didn't come back. I mean, that nerve was still exposed. So
Yeah.
I think it's amazing what we can do if we kind of unlock and get to our subconscious and clean house, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, this is what we learn, how we're so much more powerful than we know, that we can overcome so much, but we don't really believe it because of all those subconscious beliefs that are in the way, which is what you clear when you do these sessions, don't you? That's kind of
Yeah,
what you're doing.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
it could be anything. I had somebody come to me with even minor little warts on their finger, and I didn't think it was possible, but I went online and read. They said, "Oh yeah, hypnosis has been used even for helping remove warts." So it's in the mind, and
Yeah.
yes, it dissipated. It can do it with tumors and a lot of things. And one of the things I've heard the VAs doing in the hospitals is that when burn victims come in from IEDs or road bombs, things like this, they use hypnosis now for a burn victim. That's the only thing they've added, modality
Mm.
that differ from the typical protocols they use to treat a burn. And what they found was that the burn will heal 40% faster
Wow.
with a 50% less infection rate
Mm,
if they introduce hypnosis. I mean, that's remarkable.
that
And
is
they're doing it.
remarkable.
Yeah. And for our own individual things, we don't have to say, hey, well, if I get a burn, I'll try hypnosis and heal faster. But yeah, I mean, there's other reasons to do hypnosis for our own personal abilities. But what they found was that Harvard did this. They did an MRI study. They took all these MRIs, and then these participants agreed to do 20 minutes of mindful meditation
Mhm.
once a day for 8 weeks straight. 20 minutes, that's it.
Ah,
What they found was, so they did the MRIs, they knew what their brain looked like, how much gray matter was there, how big it was, everything else. Then they turned around and they did 20 minutes where they're sitting there in silence and not even focusing on a goal or anything, just basic silence, clear my mind, get rid of the stress, don't let little negative thoughts come in. What they found was at the end of that 8 week study that their gray matter had increased quite a lot inside their mind. And they were starting to get connections between the left and right hemisphere. So you're seeing
wow.
neural connections forming between the two, connecting the two.
Mhm.
And that's what I think is what's interesting about meditation. I think what we find that with a lot of people who have been meditating for years is that what I've learned is the prefrontal cortex increases in size. That's
Mhm.
your empathy and compassion centers. And what it also does is shrink the amygdala. And the amygdala is the reptilian part of our brain
Mm,
that
mhm.
tells us either to fight or run.
Mhm.
And that is, if you see a lot of the actions today in the world, a lot of it involves fear or fight. That's basically what it boils down to. So what it does is shrinks that piece of our mind, grows our prefrontal cortex, increases our gray matter,
Mm,
and makes us smarter animals. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to meditate. It makes a lot of sense for your own personal good. And I told people this. I said, you know what? I was kind of fortunate in a different way. I grew up that was like fast. I mean, we just kind of, played sports, ran, had a great time. But what 25-year-old in college is not doing that on average? But what the injury did was slow me down. It kind of grounded me down more. I couldn't do some of the things I used to do. I couldn't like fly somewhere or drive somewhere if I wanted to.
mhm.
And I have periods of time where assistance would be late, weather related, snows, car breakdown. You never know what it is. So I'd find myself with hours where, what else you going to do? So you might as well close your mind and meditate and visualize things and things like that. So we did that for a long time. And as a result, and I said this, I said, if I never started meditation, these books never would have been written. I would never have the ability just to allow my mind to open up.
Mm,
I'd bring information in, that could be helpful. And that's why I
yeah.
find with a lot of people. I think what I did learn let's go to somebody that's really let's go to somebody impressive like Einstein, for instance. What he said he would do, when he came up with the theory of relativity, what he would do is sit in his chair, he would light his pipe, and he would kick back and close his eyes. And he would visualize himself riding on a comet through space. And that's how he said he came up with the theory of relativity,
Wow.
by doing that. Nikola Tesla, back in 1900, what he said he would do is he would go into a meditative state and he would do like what they call CAD CAM drawings in his mind, computer aided design. So he came out, he had the carburetor and everything else when he invented, along with a bunch of other stuff. So what happened was he would have that spin in his mind and he would work on it, then go back. And he'd have that same, like a computer, that same image in a 3D sketch, rotating around. He said he would work on it and go back and work on it in his head
Wow.
by being in a
That's incredible. That to me is pretty amazing.
Well, Da
It just
Vinci did it, Plato did it. I mean, all the greats found that ability to go inside, and that's how they found a lot of the answers they received.
Yeah, and you're showing us that with the way you've written the books and the things that you found and discovered about people and yourself. I mean, you've created so much for yourself. You've created such a full life.
Well, I've always had a curious nature, and that probably contributed a lot. And much more curious than most people,
Mhm.
as far as like, what happens when we die? Am I going to see my grandmothers again? Am I going to see my grandfathers again?
Mm.
Just that, it just seemed so So, and it's not going to say pointless, but it seemed like such a shame,
Mhm.
to lose that, to lose that conscience that they had, to lose that ability, what they taught us, that, everything. So I think that sort of piqued a lot of an interest. Then when I got hurt, it piqued it even more. Like, why me? Why was I in this accident, not someone else? And then you learn a lot of reasons why. I mean, it was my understanding was I kind of accepted this to kind of ground me back down again, to get back on this path I should have been on. You know, but I'm just thinking the path I was on was not a bad path. I want to make that clear. I wasn't like I was, out
Oh,
robbing.
no, I understand, but this was your greater path.
It was different. Yeah. I mean, the other path would have led, along the lines. Nothing
That
wrong
was
with
a
it.
little more of the compensation path, where this one is the true soul path that you really were meant to achieve if it was meant to happen, and it did. It did.
Well, I think we checked some boxes off that we might not have checked off if I didn't get hurt.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what this life is all about, as I understand it. We're meant to gather so many aspects of our soul self in this life, so that you bring it in through the past lives, and now you've also brought it in with your own experience that's caused you to be still. It's total, and the way you are, and but yet your mind is so open to so much, and your heart is so open to so much, and you've just opened to so much with meditation and the work you do. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So what color is your soul?
Well, I'd rather not say, to be honest.
Okay, then don't say it. I didn't know if you
I
give
think,
that
I
up.
think it might look a little too, ego is not our amigo, right?
It's not about ego. Look at what you're doing. It's not about
Well,
ego.
I think if you look at people that are involved in this field, they've gotten to the point to where they might overcome serious situations. And if they take it to that next level and say, okay, find out why, and I think a lot of people that are disabled, a lot of people with a lot of suffering, it could be the loss of a job, a loss of a loved one, abuse.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of people, speaking just of abuse, I found a lot of people that I've met that I've regressed in the hypnotic state, and had abuse in a past life, and some of them even repeated abuse in this life.
Mhm.
But I got over it. I had one girl in Immortal Soul who committed suicide at 15 because her stepbrother was abusing her, and she couldn't take it. But then she learned by the counsel that suicide is not the answer.
Right,
You're
right.
gonna have to come back again, and she's conquered a tough, traumatic, abusive situation in this life. Moved beyond that, graduated college, has a great job now, and fiance. So, you can get through troubling moments. I mean, I did. It wasn't easy, but I think that what I found was that you set goals. That's what was very, very important. Set goals. It doesn't have to be a huge goal. To say, you know what, I want to get something done today. So I wrote in my first book, I talk about how I methodically kind of laid out some steps to become a broker. In Merrill Lynch, I didn't know anybody in the brokerage business. I didn't have connections. But I learned kind of what they were looking for in a person to apply for a job. And, I went in there and, even on my cover letter, I made no mention of my disability. I just went in there and they said, wow, we didn't know that resume was attached to a guy in a wheelchair. So caught a lot of by surprise, but, it's
Which
just,
was very clever on your part, because they took you as a person, and not the other parts that they might have looked at first.
yeah, I could say this too. I took assistants with me to the office so they could type, they could, they
Of course, of course.
could take client notes for me.
Well, you have to.
And we both have headsets hooked to the same phone line. So theirs was muted. I would talk to the client while they would take client notes. They would go around and use, do different software programs on the computer. So unless I told the client, about 95% of them ever had an idea I was even in a wheelchair. So, there are opportunities
Exactly.
out there. If anybody's listening in that's got some, has a disability, kind of wonders if they can do it. The key is, and I wrote about it, The Captain of My Soul, that I did that follow-up with 16 chapters about powering through paralysis, how to set goals. I had another chapter on how to meditate, how to stay healthy with a disability. And
Absolutely.
hypnosis, I did an intro chapter on hypnosis and the power of that. And then I went into moral soul. So I kind of just laid out a path of books, to take them from point A to point Z, and maybe and how to get through that dark woods, that a lot of us are facing. I mean, we all know where we sit. while we're listening to this podcast, those who are listening, we know where we are now. And for us to visualize maybe that ultimate goal. What I found to be a broker was my goal at the time. I was 25. I needed I wanted to get a job. I want to be competitive. I wanted.
Sure. You were finding that gold mine.
Yeah. And what I did was I said, you know what? What's it going to take? Well, I thought about it. What's it going to take to get me from being in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the shoulders down, to a job on the penthouse floor of Merrill Lynch? How am I going to get there? So I set goals. And what I did was I said, okay, well, I need adequate transportation, obviously. I'm not going to get there by walking. I'm not going to wheel a chair down a busy highway. So I had to get a good van that I knew was reliable. That was like a simple goal. One goal was teaching assistants, hiring to write assistants from local universities that had a common interest in accounting or finance or economics. Looking for someone on a resume. So I was able to reach out to those type of people and find them. Third was getting the right education. I knew a Bachelor of Science degree wasn't going to be enough, to entice their interest. They were looking for guys with like extra degrees. So, I ended up getting some night course in economics, and I got a Series 7, which is the broker's license they need ahead of time. So a guy gets a resume. He says, oh, he's going for some graduate work. He's got a Series way to trade stocks, the license the SEC requires. And I go in the office, I say, okay, here's my assistant. I trade him, reach their hand out, shake the hands. I couldn't do it. They bought it, and worked out very well throughout my career. So I think that the key is not everybody's gonna be different, but look at where you are now, look at where you want to go, and, draw that line and figure out what stepping stones you might want to consider to qualify for that job, to get that interview. And what you want to do is find out, obviously, what they're looking for. We want a guy with this much experience. We want this. We want this. Those are the little goals within that big goal, getting that big job. So I think a lot of people look at where they sit, point A, and they figure out, getting through that woods, climbing through that mountain, fighting off those, those wild tigers or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I better just not. Maybe I better stay where I am. So they don't take that shot. And I think a lot of times you're supposed to take that shot, but a lot of times we're too scared to do it.
I agree. I know for me, my own, just doing what I do now, it's just, I never thought I'd be interviewing people like you. And it's so fabulous that I am, and I love it. And it's, I could have never picked this out. I would have never picked this out. I just didn't have a clue. I just followed my guidance.
Well, that's the key. And I think that, from meditating, from kind of doing what you're doing and reading and, and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, like you. Yeah, thank you. And you're an amazing person. Sorry.
I think it's easier to find your path when, you get you light it up better. In other words, you find open up, go inside yourself. I mean, even Matthew in the Bible said, see with thine single eye. He didn't talk about poking one of your eyes out around the monoclonal. He talked about the pineal gland, and that's a reference.
I was thinking third eye when you said that.
The third eye, that's right. And that's what he meant by see with thine single eye. That's the third eye. Go inside, just relax, learn how to meditate, relax. You can go on my website. There's 18 recordings on there that will bring you in a very nice.
Yeah, they look amazing, powerful. And I highly recommend that to the people listening, because you've got a really powerful website. You do. You have a lot on there for people. Very generous. Very, very nice.
Nice. And I guess, davidrippy.com. That's where you're going to find most of the stuff. And, if you have interest in the books, check them out. They're all in there as well.
The books are.
You want to tell them what I think we're going to mention? Did you mention the books already?
No, I'm just going to ask you one last question before. So what's your final message you think people need to know right now for this year? And maybe, I don't know if into 2022, but just for now, what do you think that people need to know? Because look at the inspiration you are. Just yourself.
Well, thanks a lot. What I would say is this, is that, we've all, the ones that are still here, have gone through COVID, a lot of restaurants and retail business, tough time, airlines, hotels, you name it. But you've made it. And then look back all the way back through your childhood of all the challenges you've overcome, all the ways you've learned and grown as a person. And if you're not doing it yet, add meditation, add things like this, and then go inside and find those things that might trigger you to want to be contribute more, be more than you are now, and find those answers. And past life regressions can get answers for you. Learning through the works of others, Jesus, Buddha, Confucius, Mohammed, all of them. A lot of messages in there, and they didn't come down here just for fun. They came down here to help wake people up. And I would take advantage of Michael Newton, Dolores Cannon. Look at my books. I mean, I think that by doing so, I think you're going to find that say, wow, I'm more than just this.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many, many experiences. And if I know these things, and I know I've survived multiple deaths, hundreds of deaths, we all die eventually in multiple lives. We kind of feel that sense of power. And you bring that into your world and allow yourself to take in that golden light you did originally with that beautiful sacred healing you did. We bring that into our worlds, and we can kind of walk through life and kind of approach it as a lucid dream that you can manipulate and move, not, manipulate in a positive way, but move your way and through that life, with greater strength and confidence than you would have if you just accepted this is it.
Yeah. Oh, powerful words from a powerful person who just shows all that courage and challenge. And, I'm like you, I'm curious about so many things, and I'll never not be a student. And I think you're the same. You'll never not be a student of learning and growing. And what else is there really, right? When we look at the world and all that, it has to offer us.
Exactly.
So,
I'd like to just add that, I wasn't like this always. I mean, right now I feel, pretty grounded. I pretty much feel I know some decent stuff. But the more you're going to learn, you don't know everything. And there's always a constant growing process. And that's why we take multiple lives. We can't expect to get it all right in one life. It doesn't happen for anyone. So I think the more we can capture the life we're in, the more good we can do for others, putting maybe others ahead of ourselves, more often. And realize there's much more to life than just Netflix,
oh
Amazon.
yeah, oh yeah. Well,
Yes.
absolutely. And the ones that are listening kind of know that. And I hope they spread the word. Keep spreading that word. Keep sharing this word, share books, buy David's books. And, David's going to have these amazing messages for all of them to help them through what they think is pain. Sometimes your pain is never the same as others' pain. And you look at that and it helps you realize what you have and
Yeah.
what you have to be grateful for.
Yeah, there's a lot of good shows that are. Gaia has a good show. There's Life After Life. There's a Netflix series out. I'd like eventually to get. Looking to do a series. We'd like to get done on this about past lives.
Ah, fantastic. Are you going to go on Gaia? Are you going on Gaia?
Well, we think we're looking at different things right now as far as that goes. But,
Fantastic.
doing some past lives and having the same actors coming back playing different roles, and you recognize them obviously, and there's just a lot of potential out there for people finding maybe an easier way to learn some things about past lives as opposed to have to read a 400-page book or something.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think yes, it's almost like people have to see it and experience it now to really embody it more. It seems to be coming that way, it doesn't it? Because everything is rather visual. We're coming into a lot of visual. So I know you have a free gift, and do you want to talk about it, or would you like to mention it?
Yeah, what I was going to do is I was going to offer for the first 25 viewers of this podcast, feel free to text me at 484-876-1433. That's 484-876-1433. Say, hey, send your name and your email address, and I'll send you a free copy, a PDF to your email of The Immortal Soul.
And that is a fabulous gift. And we will have that information at the bottom of this email that you will get to talk about David as well. And also David has another special, no, that was it. That was your offer. It was amazing. I mean, and if you read the book now, then you have an opportunity to possibly work with David down the line, because you'll understand more of what David does. So this is what the book is going to help all of us as listeners to understand, that David has his process and what you may possibly want to do in your life. So it'll give you a great insight into what David is talking about today and what he is offering. And it'll change your life as it's changed many of people that David's worked with and David himself.
Yeah,
So,
I find if somebody reads the Immortal Soul first before pursuing a past life regression, you get a feel for the question, the Q&A that takes place, kind of what some of these 8 clients found out on the other side and about their own soul purpose, and pretty fascinating stuff. And it'll give you ideas of questions you might want to ask if you ever do a past.
mm, yeah, I think that's so powerful. I mean, that's really, really wonderful. Well, I'm going to thank our audience for listening first, and then we love your feedback and we love your comments. So if you have some feedback for David and me, give it to me at ownyourdivinelight@gmail.com, and I will also pass it on to David, or you can write to David directly because you'll have his email at davidrippy.com, right?
That's correct.
davidrippy.com, and I will have his phone number to text again down below. And if you want to get a head start while you're listening, it's the first 25. I'll say it one more time for you. You can text David at 484-876-1433 and give your name and your email so he will know. And, just do it. And you may be surprised what comes up. Don't, you never know. There's a reason that you're following this. So, David, I want to thank you so much. Oh my goodness, for the incredible inspiration and the readings that you do that encourage so many people to learn about their true essence of who they are. And we're all learning so much. And even talking about reincarnation was so powerful for people to understand that it's a real thing that could change your life when you get that into your belief system. And your courage and your love for humanity shines as a beautiful light of support and love on all of us as we become our natural selves and create our new world. And you are doing so much of that in the work that you do, and you're bringing it through to all of us. So I thank you so much. And especially during this tumultuous time. So thank you again, David. I am so blessed to have you on the show. And I am Isla Serona Miller, and I thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.